Welcome to part 4. The title says this is a cleaning video, but it's actually going to be mostly cleaning but some disassembly. I'm disassembling the bridge unit right here. You can see it's quite grimy. I'm going to take all of these saddles, that's what that is, that's a saddle. It's the primary point of contact between the strings and the guitar. The saddles are adjustable with the screw and the spring. They need to be adjusted forward and back and up and down. Up and down is for the height of the strings above the frets, and forward and back is adjustable to keep all of the frets in tune as you play them. Look how disgusting that is. But it's not unusual. So this shiny bit of dirty metal here is called the bridge plate. The saddles mount onto the bridge plate, and the bridge plate is attached to this heavy piece of metal called a tremolo block, but really it should be called a vibrato block. I kind of explained that in the last video. Leo Fender, who invented this system, used the wrong terminology. It should be a vibrato system, but he called it a tremolo system. So I did my best here to save that bridge plate. I really wanted to just clean it, make it shine again, and reuse it. But as you see here in a moment, after getting rid of all the grime, I discovered another problem hiding beneath the grime, and that is it has a bit of damage that exposed the metal beneath the chrome plating, and that metal has oxidized and rusted quite badly. Now, we could have used this bridge plate exactly as is, and I would have if I didn't have a spare part laying around that looked a little bit better. You'll see that right here. So I actually had done another Strat style guitar repair earlier, maybe a few years ago, and I kept the bridge plate that I didn't use. So this bridge plate, although it's been used and it's a little bit scratched up, it doesn't have that rust in it, so I decided to use this one instead. That scratched up bit is going to be hidden underneath the saddles, so you won't really see it. Plus, the saddles will inevitably scratch it up as you adjust it over the years, so it's normal for there to be scratches there anyway. Now, it's not clear from the video the way I edited it, but I also had a spare vibrato block, and it had almost a brand new feel to it. It didn't have any damage at all, and the vibrato block that I pulled out of this guitar was a little bit damaged. So I opted to use my spare part instead. Won't really change much. The damage you can't see, and it wouldn't affect the performance of the block, but hey, why not? Use the better block if you can. So this guitar didn't come with a vibrato bar. So that's a spare vibrato bar, and I was just testing to see if it fit the new vibrato block that I am using instead of the original one. And it does. Alright, now comes the long, tedious process of cleaning each saddle getting all the grime off of it, returning the shine to them. I'm using water and dish detergent and a toothbrush. The toothbrush is great for just getting in all the nooks and crannies. Now, would you have to do this to one of your guitars that you're using on a daily basis? No, you wouldn't have to do it every year, but when you look down at it and you notice, oh my goodness, this thing is pretty grody. That's the time to get out your canned air, spray out as much debris as you can, maybe get a toothpick or some Q-tips and clean out the debris inside of this bridge unit. And not all bridge units are as susceptible to getting dirty like the Strat bridge unit. It's just that the Strat bridge unit has multiple parts, all in a tight space, and it's very easy for debris to get caught down in there. So you wouldn't necessarily need to do this with a Tune-o-matic bridge that you'd find on like a Gibson Les Paul, for example. Things are much more wide open there, and it's harder for debris to just get stuck in there. But if you have a Strat like this, you don't have to take your guitar completely apart to clean it. You can use, just small implements like Q-tips, toothpicks, and get in there, clean it out, and you'll be good to go. Canned air also helps, as I said. It's very bright and shiny now. I'm looking forward to putting this back in the guitar. It looks virtually brand new, so that's fantastic. I'm just inspecting the screws to see how they look, see if I can clean anything off of them. There wasn't much grime on them, but there was some oxidation that I tried to remove on one or two of the screws. These 6 screws attach the bridge to the body, and they also act as a pivot point for the bridge so the vibrato system can be used. So this screw had a bit of rust on it. It's hard for the camera to pick it up, but a bit of sandpaper, I believe this was 400 grit sandpaper. A bit of sandpaper takes that surface rust right off, brings back some of the shine. Not necessary to do, but it just makes it look better. Since this screw is visible, it makes sense to make it look nice. Now, if this was a super high-end guitar, of course, I would take the next step of using a finer grit sandpaper and then go at it with a polishing wheel to really make it super shiny. But in this case, that's really not necessary. I just want to make it look better. Just testing all of the vibrato springs. They are in good shape. They weren't dirty. Same with the string tree, just inspecting those. They were okay, but I felt it was worth a little scrub. They're so small, it's easy for me to miss any grime built up in there. All right, the tuning machines had some gunk built up on them, so each of them needed a bit of a brushing. Overall, these tuning machines were in great shape. This is just a once-over quick cleaning. It's always a relief when you are kind of working on a guitar from top to bottom to find working tuning machines, because tuning machines, to get replacements, depending on which replacement you buy, can be anywhere from $50 to $150. So that, that's a lot of money. So it's nice when you could just use what you already have. There was a little bit of plastic left over from the manufacturer on that one tuning machine. We're down to the last of the 6 tuning machines. You can see there is some gunk built up in there, so quick scrub and it's like new again. And there we go. We got a bright, shiny, almost like new tuning machine. There was some scratches in places. I was just rubbing it with my fingernail to make sure it wasn't gunk built up. But no, it's just some scratch, some abrasions. All right, now to the tone knobs. So tone knobs, like the tuning machines, are something that the player is going to touch every single time they pick up the guitar. So a lot of opportunity for dirt and grime to build up on the tone knobs. The tone knobs have these little grippy textures all around the circumference of the tone knob to allow you to turn it with ease, and that's where a lot of grime and buildup can get lodged. So it takes a little time to get in there and get them all, but it's much better. Now, tone knobs are one of the cheapest things you can replace on a guitar. So if I had any problems with these at all, I would have definitely ordered a new set of tone and volume knobs. And if I did, I would have ordered them in bright white so that they match the pickguard. But hey, these work, so they're staying. Next up, we have the pickups. So that white plastic you see is actually the pickup cover. It hides the pickup itself. The pickup itself is quite fragile because what it is a bobbin, not all that different from the bobbin for sewing that thread would be wrapped around. But instead of thread, it's many, many, many feet of very thin, delicate copper wire. Now, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we're talking many, many, many thousands of windings. So you can imagine how much copper wire there is in there. And if any part of that copper wire gets severed, the pickup will stop functioning. So this plastic piece protects all of that copper wire. And it also sits above the pickguard, so it's exposed to the elements. So that's why some grime got built up on that pickup cover. Now you may be noticing how I'm kind of manhandling all of these electronics. What I'm trying to do is clean everything without damaging any of the solder connections. I'm trying to be very careful, but to be sure that I didn't damage anything, I'm going to test the electrical connection right now. So what I'm going to use is a jumper that I always have handy with some alligator clips, one with a black wire, one with a white wire, and that is my hot and my ground. And I'm going to connect the output of the electronics to the hot and ground of the output jack. This is a temporary connection so that I can plug an instrument cable into this output jack. So it's almost like I'm performing like a bit of surgery on the electronics while the electronics are out of the guitar's body. So there we go. I have the instrument cable plugged in there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use anything metal, ferrous metal. It has to have iron in it. It has to react to a magnet. But I'm going to touch the pole pieces on each pickup to make sure that they are still sending a signal all the way through to the amp. I should mention that that instrument cable is plugged into an amplifier that's just off screen. So I'm touching the pole pieces, making sure that only the pickup that's activated is making the sound. And that's indeed what is happening. So that means that my pickups are working, they're functioning. So that's just a way for me to double check that I didn't damage anything as I was manhandling the electronics as I was cleaning them. It's better to find out now when you can correct it pretty easily than it later when you're all buttoned up and everything's together. So what you see here is every bit of the guitar in one big pile. It's time to take off these strap buttons. I could have done this earlier, I just didn't think of it. Now, of course, the strap buttons are there so that you can attach a strap to the guitar so that you can stabilize the guitar when you're sitting down, or more importantly, so that you can stand up and play. They were in good shape. It didn't look like these were ever removed, so that's good. That means that the holes in the wood are not cross-threaded. They're in good shape too. The end of the guitar right here has what's called end grain in the wood. And end grain is much more fragile. So oftentimes these screws, when they're used again and again in the end grain, they will actually damage the end grain and the screw will stop biting into the wood. If that happens, you can insert a few toothpicks, cut them off so that they don't stick out of the hole, throw some glue down in there, let it dry, and then now you have a much more narrow hole that you can screw into, and the screw will bite into the new toothpicks you have jammed down in there. I know that sounds very, very ramshackle, but that is a very common way to fix that issue. So this screw head was a little rusty, so same trick as before, just use some 400 grit. It could be 300, it could be 200, just whatever. But use some sandpaper and get that surface rust off. Now this particular strap button was very oxidized. I didn't get it perfect, but I definitely improved it. You can see what's left on the sandpaper, how much oxidation I removed. Those are all in good shape. Give the spring claw a little TLC. Alright, it's time to clean the body. This is the best time to clean the body, when the guitar is completely disassembled. Nothing's in your way. You can kind of get in there, use some elbow grease, and get all the dirt and grime off of the guitar. I'm just using household cleaner here. Nothing fancy. Just whatever you can get at the store. Now, of course, if you have a vintage instrument with nitro cellulose lacquer on it, that lacquer is very, very fragile. That's why they don't use it anymore, except in special cases where they want a vintage look. But if you have nitro on your guitar, you got to be careful how you clean it. Don't be too aggressive with how you scrub. Don't use chemicals. And it's probably best to take it to a trusted repair shop or luthier to have them clean it up for you. But this finish is not nitro. It's probably polyurethane, and it's very durable, so you can really go at it. In fact, some of this grime here, this is like old adhesive or something on that bottom right side. That wouldn't come up with just regular household cleaners. So this is a cool trick, and you can use this on glass. You can use this just around the house. Get yourself some nail polish remover, some makeup removal pads, and use just a modest amount of nail polish remover. And it takes adhesive and other kind of goo. It takes it right off. Now, nail polish remover is meant to take off the nail polish. So any material that is similar to nail polish, it will take off right away. So if your guitar finish is similar to nail polish, it would take that off too. So test it in a area that you don't mind damaging to make sure the nail polish removal is not going to do any harm to your guitar. Just a big disclaimer there. But as you can see here with this poly finish, it was totally fine. But yeah, if you ever have residue left over from a price tag on a dish or piece of glass or anything really, try some nail polish remover and to take that gunk off like super quickly. So there's a lot of surface scratches on this guitar. Some car polish compound helps fill in those scratches and just return a bit of shine back to the guitar. Now, if this was, again, a high-end guitar, I would have done another round of polishing after what you see here. This is just a hand polish. I would have done this again, but with a motorized buffer to really get a high gloss. And this does get pretty glossy just with my hand, but I would have added a second round. You can see how much better it is already. Now it's important that you rub in the polish with one part of your rag and you buff the polish with a different part of the rag or just use a different rag altogether. Obviously, you don't want to be buffing with polish on your rag because you'll just be starting the whole process over again. So let's talk about what polish actually does. When we think about polish, we think about making the surface as glossy, as shiny as possible. Give it that mirror-like finish. But in order to do that, we have to make the surface as smooth as possible so that when light bounces off of it, it bounces off in a mirror-like way. So to make a surface smooth, we have to remove the peaks, the microscopic peaks of the surface, and fill in the valleys of that surface so that the surface is completely smooth and flat. To do that, polishing compound has two characteristics. It has an abrasive that sands down, like sandpaper, the peaks. And it also has a waxy compound that fills in the valleys. Those two characteristics level out the surface so that the surface is much more even and has very little texture to it and gives it the mirror shine.